commentary.
And you hear these albums and you hear these songs and you're thinking, I wonder if this person knew that they were writing the hits of yesteryear.
I think 8 out of 10 times they know, but I do think a good 20% of the time it's a real sleeper. I just watched a documentary on U2, and U2 wrote Without You, and they were talking about Joshua Tree, the record that song's on, and all the hits. I didn't even realize this, but they put that record out right in the middle of the 80s. So there's like new wave, and there's 80s rock and hair bands and all kinds of crazy stuff. And you're imagining these guys from Ireland, and at this time they were selling tickets and they were touring well, but they hadn't had like this massive record yet, specifically in the States. And he was describing that song in particular, and he's like, now you think of it as a hit. You think of it, when you hear it, you just think of it as monster hit. But he's like, imagine that song in that time, and how unconventional that song is, and how it's this like sleepy whisper of a song amidst this like noisy, clamoring pop FM radio. And I think sometimes those kind of songs the artist doesn't know. I think sometimes things resonate.
That's a long game song.
Yeah, it's just timeless, and I think that record is actually timeless. And I think it was put out right in smack dab in the middle of like substantive wasteland. And I was hearing of the producer talk about it, speaking some interesting stuff, just in the sense that it takes a lot of courage and bravery sometimes to release art that is completely out of step, not out of step with people or humanity, but out of step with people are thinking.
And I think that's true. Fashion.
Yeah, I think that's true of things beyond music, too. I think most of the stuff, it's not that it's worthless. It can bring joy and it can bring entertainment and stuff, but it's generally the stuff that is brave and that, you know, people aren't going to clock with and, gosh, this isn't commercial or whatever the case may be, if that's art or if it's an idea or, I mean, even like our very faith is outside of what instincts would tell you. It's so outside of what your gut would tell you. We long for these conquests and we long for these like superheroes, and the person of Christ really doesn't fit any of those patterns. So it's just interesting that a lot of the things that end up being really great are not the initial, and I still think 80% of the time you do know. No, there's just this, okay, this has got a great melody, or this book is really just amazingly written, or this piece of art is just stunningly beautiful. But then a couple times there's some sleepers. It makes it exciting. You know what I mean?
You never know what's going to resonate.
Maybe it's timing too. You know, timing's an element with all this stuff. Does it come out at the right time?
Makes me think of that album that Dido put out. Was on the charts for like 14 months.
Yeah,
and then Eminem
I remember that
it.
record.
You remember that? And then Eminem sampled it, and of course that song, probably the most well-known song off of that album, went to number one. But you would, you know, if you were the record label or if you were the artist, you would have thought, well, this is a mess. We tried.
Right, and there's a couple records like that, too, that sleep for a long time and then come out of nowhere. The greatest example of that I've ever heard musically is Nick Drake.
Oh, Nick Drake. Oh, yeah. How long did that
He's the greatest sleeper story of all. I mean, he didn't even live to see his success.
And that had nothing to do with it.
I think you write a song like, you know, You Brown Eyed Girl. I think you write some of these songs, I just know they got a hit. There are just some songs that are just so amazing. It's a big hit by Bob Marley. What is
the Two Little Birds? This is my message for you. Don't worry about a thing. That one?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's actually called Two Little Birds. Everyone thinks it's called Don't Worry, but
that song, you know, you hear it. Like, I'm imagining you hear it in the studio. I challenge you not to sing along with those. Cynic or saint alike, I challenge you not to sing along with, like, Power in the Blood and Victory in Jesus. They're so
great.
Infectious. Which is there's this thinking that you're going to lose people generationally if you don't offer them the trough that you've been told that they want to, you know, eat from. And so if it's young, it's supposed to package itself like this, and it's supposed to present itself like this, and if it's old, it's supposed to package itself. But my experience, specifically as a musician, but even as a person as I like talking and interacting with people, is that it's exactly the opposite of that. There are some things that are just inherently good and true and resonate with humans. And this whole notion now, you can even take this politically, where you have to carve everybody up and you have to look at everybody as this like segment. I don't think that's true. And I mean, like, think of some of these big shows that are coming out, like Dancing with the Stars and some of these choir shows. The reason that stuff is resonating is because that stuff's just timeless. I mean, you see 80 people on a stage singing some spiritual that's just gorgeous. That doesn't matter if you're 18 or 80. If you're a human being with a pulse, you're going to be moved by that. So this whole thinking that you have to, you know, sacrifice the one for the other, is a false paradigm, but people buy into that. And truth is timeless. That's the reason I'm a conservative. I think if you speak the truth, it has a power all to itself. But I think that whole message is very lost. Everybody wants you to like really fine-tooth comb everything and
package it for the young people, package it for the future.
I don't think that's good. I definitely don't think that's timeless. The president used to get out there and speak these grandiose messages to the country, not to, women or to young people or to disenfranchised minorities or whatever the case may be. He used to just say, here's the nation we want to be. Here's how we get there. And now you never hear that stuff. You always hear some sort of like carved up language. And even Christians like to use that stuff. Like when you hear stuff like social justice, like my skin crawls. Because what does that mean? That just means that you're trying to do something shady under the name of justice, right? Well, justice is like everybody, right? We all can get down with this. Like who doesn't want justice?
Who doesn't want justice? That's an easy marketed notion, right?
I think they know that brings us together. And so they had to do something to carve us up.
A rallying cry with not much behind it. It's always been a weapon to divide, but now that Obama has proven that it's such a tactic that works so well,
right?
It's such a powerful thing to just completely divide people. I think it's going to be worse than I think it's already worse than it's ever been. But used as a weapon, of course, people are going to be divided on things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about to be taken out of your arsenal and used as a weapon whenever things get too hot.
It's not that people will not always have division of thought or of opinion, but almost to look at division as a game and to look for ways where they're not divided, where they could be divided. I think that is literally what this administration has done.
Because if you don't have any fresh ideas, then you use stale tactics to scare voters. If you don't have a record to run on, then you paint your opponent as someone people should run from.
And you see folks waving tea bags around.
And stop trying to fan the flames of division.
That's the attitude of too many morons in this country.
Long live the new media. CollegeCountry.net